finally managed to get my hands on the A7V. And if you know me well, then you'll know that I used to shoot everything on the A7 IV. I did for many years. I was obsessed with this camera when it first came out. So having the A7V is a huge improvement. I've been shooting with it for the last few days, so I'm about to the park. Come with me and I'll tell you what I thought about it. Right, so first things first, I think this camera is absolutely phenomenal, as I do with most cameras that come out these days. And I thought that way about the A7 IV. I did everything on that camera and absolutely loved it. I bought it pretty much when it came out and I took that thing everywhere with me, traveled all over Southeast Asia for me. I used it on jobs abroad, took it everywhere, shot everything on it, absolutely loved it. And I wasn't actually going to upgrade. The only reason why I did was, one issue was the crop sensor at 60 frames per second. I wanted something that wasn't going to crop. And another reason is I just wanted to be taken maybe a bit more seriously. So I felt like an FX3, people would take me a bit more seriously. Maybe it's my insecurities. But the A7 IV definitely did everything I needed it to. And I actually still use it quite often now as a B cam or when I'm shooting stills, because I'd rather shoot stills on my A7 IV than on the FX3. But the A7V addresses a lot of those issues that I had in the A7 IV. So on the A7V, they got rid of 60 frames per second crop, which you had on the A7 IV, and they've now moved it to 120 frames per second, which I actually don't mind. 120 frames per second, I never really use, even on my FX3. The body is pretty much the same as the A7 IV. The only difference is this flip out screen here, which is really cool because obviously a lot of people, you know, like to shoot like that, so not have it flipped out and just have it flipped up. And you can pretty much move it in any way you want, which is super helpful. You have the two USB-Cs here, so you can have one going straight to an SD card reader or something else, and one that's a charging port. So I got to test this out straight away in a job, and the first job I did was actually in a really dark room. I mean, it was basically in a cinema screening, but they had the screen off and they had the people talking right in front of the screen, but there was nothing lighting up the speakers. So it was literally in an extremely dark room. And I did obviously get quite a lot of noise because, you know, I don't think any camera is built for the dark kind of space I was shooting in. But one thing I did notice was the back screen looked very different to the A7 IV. I had them side by side, and this screen was a lot brighter. So I did actually check I had this, you know, the same settings on both of them, so I was like, oh, they look so different. But yeah, when you compare the screens, they look very different. This was a lot brighter, a lot clearer, and it just looked, yeah, a lot better. I could see what I was doing really well. So the screen is actually so nice on this, and it's a lot bigger as well. It just looks a lot cleaner. Yeah, definitely improvement on the screen. Another thing that's absolutely amazing in this camera is the IBIS. They've put 3 options in for Steadicam. One is standard, the other one is active, and then the other one is a dynamic active. And I'm actually going to show you what these look like. The dynamic active is incredible. It's almost like you're shooting on a gimbal, except the only downside is that it's cropped in a lot. So one thing I want to show you on this camera is the IBIS. So right now it's just on standard, and you can see it's like not punched in too much. It's just kind of doing its thing, but I always find on standard it doesn't really do that much. Okay, now this is active stabilization. And as you can see, it's a bit more improved, tiny bit more cropped in, but it's still, you know, still really good. And right now we have dynamic active, which as you can see is cropped in a lot. It's almost like maybe even a 24 or something. But the stabilization on this is absolutely great. I was walking down Camden with my girlfriend and I was filming a bit behind her, and it almost looks like a gimbal shot. You can kind of just see my feet bobbing up and down, but the actual tilting is, you know, just so good. So another thing that's really impressive with the A7V at the moment is the improvement to rolling shutter and autofocus, which is always something that has been impressive on Sony cameras, but now the A7V, you know, really takes it to another level again. And this is due to the sensor stacking, which basically means you have your pixels on the front of your sensor, which is, you know, where your sensor usually goes through. And then you have your image processing engine behind that, which is how every sensor works. But with the A7V, in between those two layers, they now have an intelligent layer, which is basically your AI layer. And it, you know, helps to improve these things such as rolling shutter, helps noise reduction, multiple things. So adding the AI layer in really helps with a lot of things inside the image. Also, with the improvement of things like processing power, they've managed to retain a lot more battery power in the camera. Luckily, you need the same battery, so thank God they haven't changed the battery and you need to go and buy whole new batteries. But with the same battery, they've managed to make it last a lot longer. The other day I was filming a podcast and the battery lasted for a good couple of hours before it started running out. I have heard people online say it lasts longer than that, but that's just what I found. But the big improvement I did find was that once it did drain, I plugged it into a power source while it was still running, and I found that with my A7 IV, if I plugged power into the USB on the side, it never really charged the battery. It would just actually continue draining off the battery and say it's plugged in, but it wouldn't really charge the battery. Whereas I felt like with this camera, it actually charged the battery while running off the power lead, which is absolutely amazing. Another area where people are saying they've seen a huge improvement from the 4 to the 5 is the overheating issue. I didn't really experience my A7 IV overheating too many times, especially once I changed the setting to high on the auto temperature off setting. So that wasn't a huge issue for me. I did experience it once or twice though, and it was always on my mind, like, you know, when I was filming a long concert or something like that, I was a bit like, this room's getting quite warm, will my camera turn off? But you know, like I said, it wasn't a huge issue. It didn't do it too many times. But the fact that they have improved that on this camera is great. You don't want your cameras to be overheating if you're filming something important. So, you know, an improvement in that is actually huge. So another thing that people are really raving about when it comes to this camera is the burst fire mixed with a pre-shoot. So what that means is it can burst fire an insane amount, especially with the electronic shutter. So you have to put it from electronic shutter rather than manual. And listen to this. It's just absolutely wild how many pictures it can actually capture. So it's amazing if you're into wildlife photography or something like that. Personally, I don't know if I would really use this that much just because I don't really shoot that kind of content. But if you are really into wildlife and stuff like that, then this really is something that will stand out for you. But I saw a jogger running past now in the forest and I got a couple of shots of him, and you can see how the autofocus actually stayed on him so well. And you can actually see some of their pre-capture shots as well. So it started shooting before I actually hit the shutter, and you can see the jogger running past. So I'm gonna wrap up this video right here and tell you my thoughts on the A7 V. I think this is an absolutely unbelievable camera personally. If I was buying a first full frame camera and I had a couple of grand to spend, I would definitely buy something like this because it's a great all-rounder. And like I said in the beginning of the video, it can pretty much do everything you want it to do. I'm not sure what you'd be making that you couldn't do with this camera, if that makes sense. You know, cameras have just got so good now that, yeah, like there's not really many flaws with it or anything that you couldn't work around. I mean, I'm not sure what flaws you'd find with it, but you know, if you hit something, then you know, I'm sure you could work around it. It's just such an all-rounded amazing camera. And if I kicked off my career with a A7 IV with that little crop, you know, with the 60 frames per second crop, then this is like a step up above from that. So, you know, yeah, this is an amazing camera. Would I buy it? Yeah, I would buy it. If I needed a second camera, a B cam, and I'm getting a bit sick of my A7 IV, then I'll definitely upgrade to the A7 V. Even as a stills camera or just a hybrid shooter, it's just absolutely amazing. So yeah, I'm considering buying one. So I'll see how I get on. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope you really liked it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.